On today's video, we're going to talk about discovery ad campaigns, whether or not they work, which, by the way, they do. How to actually get them to work the right way, and since I kind of gave away already what you'll find on this video as an effective new traffic source for your business that will generally work if you have a type of product that I'm going to lay out here, what kind of results you can get, and about how much results I've gotten in past campaigns here doing it for other clients here, which we do it for. I don't do it for every single client that we have, and I have about 30 clients at any given time. And it being a fairly new tool in 2021 here to use to drive traffic to your site, the new totally cold traffic, which it can do quite well, not just through remarketing is this tool useful, but more often than not, it's been successful in terms of generating sales beyond the cost of the product and the overhead and everything else that goes into doing business for the clients in which I tried it out for. Inherently, like I said, I haven't tried it out for everyone. Why? Because I understand inherently as a general advertiser what makes sense where this would work before, but where it made sense to me most of the time was able to make it work. I want to say if you could see yourself agreeing with after the advice I give you and what I'm going to give you here for information seems like it'll apply to your product or service that you're marketing, which I will say it generally works a little bit better for products, definitely could work for services here as well. B2B, B2C, all that stuff. It's not like other PPC methods. It's not about if it will work truly. And when I say it didn't work every time, it's just it will always work to some degree. The question is to what degree and when, because you can always run your ads with good tracking setup and you knowing what you got to pay for a conversion for it to be profitable and hit your margins. You would just simply downgrade your bidding on the different audiences that you'll set up within the discovery campaigns, finding out what the traffic is worth for each of your subsegments there that I'm going to teach you to do, dialing it in, and now it's going to provide some sales at the margins that you're looking for. That should be, by the way, just no secret in how you do all your other PPC, which I talk about heavily in my other videos. So respectively, you can almost guarantee you're going to walk away with this video with a workable strategy for your business, and I'm going to give you the best practices to jump over all the kind of most of the testing that you have to do to get this up and going and working for your company, starting right away or today. So why discovery ads work better than other display ads? You're obviously anymore with PPC, when you're not everything excluding search engine advertising, there's so many options out there why you'd want to pick this. And is similar to running like Facebook ads in which how well they work. As far as everything non-search engine advertising related, most people's go-to is Facebook ads. Why? Because my basic opinion on that is it's just a lot of hype, if you will. Through word of mouth advertising, Facebook has become, outside of search engine advertising, the go-to, but that's changing now because of the updates and the amount of access that Facebook has access to. Google's starting to get a clear edge, as far as I've seen, if you want. So just as a side tip, on Facebook, or at least to where it's a lot more equal than what it was. Facebook ads definitely work and still do work, but it's not in Facebook's peak in 2017, 2018, where they had the access to the most data and not being attacked for using it. Facebook's ads did pretty much work better, but Google has is getting an edge on the data aspect of things, but their algorithm is getting better in terms of lookalikes targeting that Facebook had that did so well with in the past. And so again, I foresee Google Display Network beating Facebook ads in the very near future, and it might be kind of even right now. But these, if you have run Google Display Network ads in the past, you may not have gotten it to work because of, with things I just mentioned. It's more difficult to get work than Facebook advertising, but I just put this frame of reference Facebook ads because if you can get Facebook ads to work, these discovery ads should work, is my point here. So just to give you some initial kind of insight as to and confidence about the program, I can tell you it works, but it could work just like a Facebook ad can. If it does work for your business, you can pretty much count on it will work here for you as well. So anyway, I'm going to give you a quick background, then we're going to talk about why these work, and then we're going to talk about how to get it to work, how I set it up, and then what kind of results to expect, specifically reflecting on times where I've done this exact thing before. So to start off, the main reason why you have to realize certain display PPC campaigns, basically anything else PPC related where you're running advertising online that's not search engine advertising, works, and sometimes, in other words, when it works and it doesn't work, has to do with basically more than anything. If you think about this at a 10,000 foot level, has to do whether or not you're actually getting in front of a real user or not. In other words, another way to say that is there click fraud involved, or are you getting in front of a bot instead of a real person? And so this has been a problem in the past, i.e. click fraud, people having websites that, they're kind of scamming people in terms of they're generating clicks on an ad that you may have paid to place on there through Google Display Network or another ad network, maybe like Taboola, what have you. And that obviously cuts into the potential of whether or not the ads will work or not. And in the past, you kind of dealt with it by, you always are just going to evaluate the traffic agnostically in that, like I said before at the start of the video, you track everything, you see what the traffic's worth, you adjust your bids for that traffic source, or you should anyway, and respectively, once you get far enough into it, a certain site will get a certain bid because each site has a little bit different amounts of click fraud, if you will. But it's gotten to the point now in some specific areas I'm going to mention to where it's really tough to get working at all. And at the very least, you have to do what I'm telling you to justify doing it. And I think a lot of what they're living on is, basically old agency money, where the bigger the agency, a lot of people don't realize this about the PPC management and ad agency space, the bigger the agency after a certain degree, the relationships are what drive those engagements with those firms, not so much the response that they're getting. And they don't want you to, they don't track things well because they don't want to see how it's not working. And obviously it takes some skill to get advertising to be directly returning profit. And so they kind of hide things, but so they'll go out and they buy advertising on sites that the traffic seems cheap, but doesn't really work, and it looks good on paper. But click fraud, a lot of it, avoiding it, has to do with the quality of site in which you are choosing to advertise on. The network has, whether you're choosing to advertise through Google Display Network or Taboola, or you're advertising on a news site or through Quora or whatever, the network itself that allows you to buy the advertising matters, but more so matters is the fact, the actual site you're on, because Google Display Network will let you get on millions of websites, and within Google Display Network there'll be sites that work and don't work. The great thing about the discovery ads is you're on Google's own properties, and you can generally I won't get into any set things here, but you could trust, as far as what Google delivers in their advertising program, you can trust Google is not going to screw you out of clicks. They're going for long-term views on things. They're not like another business that I'll mention here, have no problem with throwing in some fake clicks in there just to earn a little bit more money. So if I'm telling you as an experienced PPC guy here that you want to go with sites in which you could see you're probably not going to get screwed out of some of the clicks, and go after some more proven sources, even though the price is a little bit more, it's not so much more, generally speaking, going through a trusted site that you could trust to put your advertising on, than as is cheaper sites there's quite a bit of click fraud on it to the point where it could be 10, 20, 30 fraud clicks I've seen respectively for every actual person, real person that's your prospect clicking on your ads. It's gotten to ridiculously egregious in some situations. So discovery ads, you don't have to worry about it because you're dealing with Google all the way through. both on the either buying the ad site and also, of course, where the ad actually ends up, so that you can pretty well assure you're not going to have any click fraud, to the degree that Google can check it out, whereas a lot of other sites, they don't give a rat's behind if there's click fraud going on. So anyway, the best sources of traffic are going to be the ones that are also the most trustworthy. In that, I'm going to have a kind of a hierarchy in which what sites I'm going to choose if it were my business to run my display advertising on. And if it works on one, I can definitely go ahead and I can try anything, but I'm going to go after the ones that are the most trustworthy first, because those are I have the most predictable outcome from what I have. I don't have to worry about the unknown factor of how many people that are bots are clicking our ads. And if you didn't know, there's people that they will set up sites with advertising. They'll try to make money off of AdSense, which is the revenue sharing program that Google has. So if you're as a website publisher or owner, you can put Google's ads on those sites, in which is what you get through Google Display Network and the Google Ads program. They'll actually pay people, like in the Philippines, to literally click on your ads, and they get a cut of every time they click. And it's hard for Google to detect this sometimes, because you got real human behavior, and having scripts to detect that. They still can very well, but it's, there's a lot of crap that goes on out there. Not any fault of Google's really, as far as I can tell, tries as best as they can to weed that out. There's a lot of businesses who that survive off these false clicks, or fraud clicks, if you want to call it that. And then there's a lot more who don't give a crap and benefit by turning their head. So anyway, I'm going to go with the trusted source first, make that work, and then maybe even if I set the bid low enough, even with all the fraud clicks, I can still make money from that traffic source. But I'm not going to, when I'm trying to figure things out, I'm not going to go after those and have more unknowns than I need to. The Google is the top one I'm going to go for, which makes discovery ads a great choice for any display advertising that you want to do for your company. Search engine advertising being the top one, just because usually it works the fastest, and I mentioned that in other videos on Bing. But respectively, any property that Google owns, YouTube, of course, and Gmail, those are great places to go, because you can expect quality clicks from what you're getting. So I'm going to start extracting everything I can from a Google search click, and then any property that Google has, Facebook and Gmail being the key ones there, that through Facebook, Facebook, YouTube ads, which are going to be done through getting on YouTube, is through Google Ads, and on Gmail and also YouTube through these discovery ads, which is also done through Google Ads. I'm going to start there, and I'm probably going to not stop until I've worked out what are the possible opportunities there, and until I move on. The next place I'll move on is generally Facebook. Why? Because I can trust Facebook pretty much. Well, here's the thing about it, right? You got to see where companies' incentives lie. Facebook makes money off of people's data. They don't just make money on advertising. And I don't actually know what the split is there. It'd be interesting to see what they make selling the data, and I don't think you'll ever really truly know. But they don't want to necessarily, they don't have to rely on screwing people that are trying to advertise there so much, because I believe they probably make just as much, or if not more, selling data to who knows who. And done some audits to see, like, you can compare. One way to see what's going on is you can compare traffic coming from Facebook on Facebook's system itself, as well as Google Analytics, to see who's honest. You could, by the way, with Google, if you wanted to do the same thing, find a third-party tool other than Google Analytics to see if Google's staying honest, which I can tell you don't have to really worry about that, but you technically could. And I've ran those kind of experiments before, which is why I speak so confidently about this, and just from the results that I see. But I'm going to do Facebook second, and I'm also going to do like LinkedIn. LinkedIn being a Bing product, and of course, Bing and Microsoft, they've got other revenue than advertising. This is just a side thing for them. They're not so desperate, we'll just say, to screw anybody over and turning their head when false clicks are coming through, and because they kind of need to. Going further from there, though, once you get out of those primary platforms, businesses who don't primarily make their money from advertising now would be the place I would go after that. And Taboola obviously makes all their money off of advertising. There's no, and you were saying, but wait, Google basically makes all their money from advertising. Yeah, but they have users to make sure they have to have come back to have a long-term view. Whereas a Taboola, even though I do use Taboola quite a bit in different situations, they don't have any users that they're looking after. But they just want people to click on those ads as much as they can, and people to have more clicks to sell as much as they can, and that's it. And if they piss off anybody long-term, oh well, they got another customer, or more so than what these other companies have. So I'm going to trust them less, therefore I'm going to put them lower on my priority list. And I'm going to go after bigger sites in which, going to that same concept, they have users still to look after, and that's not their primary business model, trying to, or have to, seem like they would have to rely on click fraud to stay in business, we'll just say. Like Reddit, Quora, both have PPC programs that are pretty good. Bigger the site, in which, and the more so it looks like they have a business model of pleasing users and retaining them, the more so I'm going to trust that site, the more so I'm going to try to use them first. And obviously, if it doesn't make sense in terms of the people they have to target, they're not in that order. But the bigger and the more so that they have to retain users, the more so I'm going to trust it, the more so I can count on it being easy to monetize. Now, on the flip side, by the way, news sites, even we're talking about Forbes.com, don't sue me, Forbes, but they got all these games that I've noticed that they play, and I don't have any statistical data for you or anything like this, but their whole news site model is dying, right? And so what they do, as we all know, they do clickbait articles to get people at any cost to click on the ads, or that click on the articles, and then the pages that if you click the back button, you can tell when you get to an article at the end, you have to click back 3 or 4 or 5 times, and those are all, as far as my understanding goes, ad impressions to them, and then therefore you're paying more for that, necessarily, and they load it up with ads, and their whole business relies on whether or not people click on those ads, and they're desperate for money because of their whole business model being kind of becoming a thing of the past. Or let's just say it's so competitive where they're probably not making money, and therefore if somebody they got bots, that only helps them, and they're in a position to take it. That was my whole kind of premise here. So I'm not going to try to advertise on any of those other sites, even though Google's display network will get me on these sites, and I trust Google. I don't trust the end sites, and Google can only do so much to determine all the shenanigans that's going on, because they have millions of sites to track, and even though it's Google, they can only track it so well. And instead of that, my whole point is I'm going to go a ad on a Google property itself first, and I've known that will work, and I'm glad that Google has a discovery ad product there, or campaign type, so I can have an easy way to leverage as much as I can on YouTube, because YouTube generally, even before discovery ads, has worked great. If I'm going to go anywhere, I'm going to go in terms of banner ads, even there, which Google lets you run banner ads on YouTube. I'm going there first. The numbers are consistently the best there. Gmail ads have worked good in the past, not nearly as much as what I would rely on YouTube. And then, because YouTube works so well, I'm running lots of YouTube video ads, and now I'm doing discovery ads. Discovery ads, because it's new, actually works. Any new product that Google has starts out really cheap. You're getting way high value from it until people catch on. It gets more competitive, and therefore the clicks will be a little bit more expensive, but generally not so much, as long as you're just on top of your game and you're just doing a little bit more work in terms of pleasing the user and targeting them a little bit more and making the ad a little bit more enticing, that it'll still always work. Google as a product, it's pretty easy to get it to work. So I just wanted to throw that general prelude out there about why, at the end of the day, you go for a discovery ad versus all the other choices on the web, and how you kind of make decisions about where to pick from to advertise once you've done all the kind of the cherry picking of search engine advertising in your space, people going after stuff that, they're typing in stuff looking to buy what you sell, respectively, okay? So anyway, thought you would learn something from that. The best you can usually do, and now we're talking about if you're in a position where you've done the search engine advertising for yourself, you want to get into display advertising, which would be PPC, non-search engine advertising, just to be clear here. Where do I go first? Well, I mentioned you're trying to go with a trusted network and more so a trusted place where the ad's going to show up, because you're getting in front of a real human being. You usually want to go to a top tier site, like I mentioned, with traffic though, / targeting, in which you could target people who already have, that are in market for what you sell. So just because you're on Google and you can trust Google, if you have no way to advertise to somebody who is already in market for what you sell already, and you may be able to go on even Quora, which you do have somebody that asked a question there, or should I say have the idea of the question that was already being asked, in which they're reading their answers, that they're looking to buy what you sell. I would rather go there because that targeting component is very important too. That you have to also consider this. So the ultimate though is what my point is to go on a top tier site in which we can target people we know are already interested in what we sell. If you have to choose between totally untargeted and a site that's a little less trustworthy, I'm going with a little less trustworthy site, but obviously it would be good to have both. So you get my point. But so with that, the great thing I should say about Google is Google has Google Display Network, Google has discovery ads, and with either of those, so you could trust Google. With discovery ads, you can get on their property. So in terms of display advertising, for me, it's the best of the best right now even. But if you want to get on a secondary site in which you can get on through Google's display network that have, at Google AdSense, which most sites are running Google AdSense. So if you see banner ads on a site, it's probably accessible through Google Display Network. I'm going to target, so basically all the keywords somebody could type into Google that are looking to buy my product or service now, I'm going to put this into a custom intent audience through Google Display Network, and then I'm going to target people then based upon that list of keywords in which if they've typed in within the last 30 days or so something related to buying the product or service I sell, I can have a display ad show up for a person. You can do that on Google Display Network, but you can also do this with these discovery ads. And so, respectively, I'll usually do discovery ads and Google Display Network at the same time because they both will work to some degree. Discovery ads even more right now. But that's one of the main things I'll do right away if I'm getting into when I have extracted everything I can from search engine advertising and I'm going into just straight display ads or non-search advertising, online advertising. I'm also going to do, by the way, competitor terms. So I'll find all the ways in which some people type in my direct competitors, and I'll create a custom intent audience with those competitor names in it, so that when somebody search for the competitor of mine, my banner ad through discovery ads, also through Google Display Network, I can show up for just them, and that's very, very profitable. The only problem is it's not quite as, you're not going to get the same volume as you're going to get with these keyword audiences you build, but that would be something I would recommend for you right away. So when I always say start with the most profitable stuff first, and then once it works, use the money to get into what you think is the next most profitable thing, and then so on and so forth, and build yourself up a nice profitable account. So if you wanted to run discovery ads, I would run these I'd create a competitor terms audience first, see if you can get a decent amount of ad clicks from that. Particularly if you wanted to do it all the way right, I'm going to have an ad for every competitor so that I can have a custom ad at the end of this that matches what I want to say to the person who's looking for XYZ competitor, because my product or service is going to be better and so much better than that competitor, 67% more powerful for 1/3 the cost, and I could put that in my ad, literally speaking, educate that user, and so when they get to my site, they're so much more qualified, they're going to convert at a high rate and much more likely to have the thing pay for itself. And I'm going to do that for each competitor, but more so if you have the time, where the really great results come in, you do it for each product or service that they offer, depending if you're offering products or services. So when they're searching for product model XYZ12 from competitor A, I can have a discovery ad or Google Display Network ad that shows up just for people who have searched for that exact machine or competitor product in the last 30 days, and have a pre-designated ad that says why my product, which I have over here, would be the product I would recommend to the person considering that exact product from the competitor. I can say why it's better, why they should buy it in the ad, and they would only see that ad for that person who was looking for that specific machine or product or service. So I can know how. Basically, we're not going to make them scroll around and do all this stuff on our site, which cuts into conversions and ROI. We tell them exactly, I know you're looking at this, that means we already know your needs are this versus, all these possible needs. Here's why you should buy our product here, and the product itself that we have, it's actually similar to the one you were looking at, and you should check this out on our site, and here it is, and we're going to direct them directly there. If you do all that, the results are generally going to be amazing. I would recommend you do that. You can do that with discovery ads. Once you've done that, the competitor terms, custom intent audience that you create, and the keywords custom intent audience that you create. I didn't mention by keywords before, each category of product or service you have, I'm going to break that up into separate audiences for each category, and then I'm going to obviously have a separate ad group for each category, so that at least when somebody clicks on my discovery ad, we can send them directly to the category search results page in which that product or service is exclusively offered, which, like I said, goes back to the more you make people think and do when they get to your site on their own, the less money you'll make, because more people statistically will get confused, and then the more people will bounce. And display campaigns are hard enough to get to work. You want to go ahead and do yourself a favor and just use some of these concepts to your advantage, so that it works basically right out the gate. You can always you can always do it the sloppy way and then come back and do it the right way, and maybe you will get lucky. But if you do all this stuff, nobody else is willing to do this 99% of the time. So therefore, if you do it, it'll probably make the ad space, what you're buying, more productive than what anybody else in your space can afford to pay for it, and therefore it will work every time, which is what you always are trying to do. Just do better than your competitor. Generally, you will win. You'll be able to make the ad space more profitable than your competitor, and then you can eat it all up. You've done a custom audience for each competitor product or service, directing people to the ones that are equivalent on your site, and for each category of keywords that people can type in to find and want to buy each one of your categories of products or services. And done that, after a while, you'll get auto-created custom intent audience segments to show up right there in when you go into your targeting and if you were to do a discovery ad in the targeting settings, it'll let you set up and pick your audience. Once you get going, there'll be these auto-created ones that'll say, hey, this is audience based upon the people that are coming in and converting, we recommend you use. And it'll be, if you're selling like CNC machines, it'll be like CNC machine buyers, and it'll say auto-created next to it. The ones that the algorithm thinks that you should use it. It'll work to some degree. You'll find out after 1,000 clicks what you should be paying for that segment of traffic, and happily ever after will you get customers from that new traffic source, which is why this gets more and more profitable as you go along, because Google figures out, using their algorithm, all the thousands of data points they have on each one of their users, the people that buy in the past, they're like, so they can suggest, certain groups of people with those same similar traits can be targeted individually, so that you can have the capability to raise your bid or lower your bid based upon how well that does versus the general audience as a whole that you set up from earlier. Once you have these audiences set up, these custom intent audience segments, and if you create you click on any auto-created audiences that show up for you in the display campaign or the discovery ad targeting settings menu. In the audience category, you can adjust your bids on each audience that you have created. You of course can adjust your bids at the ad group level, but basically you want to make sure you have tracking set up beforehand. You'll run, and then you'll just see, like I said, each one of these audiences and subsegments here that you have, they'll perform a little bit differently, and you just are going to use math to decide. You're going to ahead of time, before you even go into this, you're going to figure out that if you get a sale for under 20 bucks and your lifetime value of a customer being this, that you're profitable and you will take all of them that you can get, and then you'll run each segment differently, or you'll separate each one of these segments out, so at the end of the day, one is going to perform so well and each one will have their own little different levels of performance. And then after you have 1,000 clicks effectively from each one, you'll know exactly what to bid, so that you're not paying over $20 a conversion or a sale for that segment. And then there'll be so much that you can get from that segment, and that's it. But that's all you can ask for, and then you move on to trying other campaign types later on. You take the money for what you make here, you would reinvest it into a different type of traffic source, and you try to do that there, and you just keep going. That's how you build up a huge multi-million-dollar a year account for yourself. But anyway, that's kind of the third thing I'm going to do, but that's not right away, obviously, because you got to wait for these auto-created segments to show up in your targeting menu. And then, of course, once you've done that, and again, I'll usually do this on Google Display Network if I'm going to set these audiences up. Even though discovery ads in general work better, for the time being, probably will stay that way because of the quality of sites you're getting on. Discovery ads will work better, so if you want to just do that solely starting out, that might not be a bad idea. The last thing you're going to target with the discovery ad, since we're talking about that, I'll just stick to that for now in terms of what I'm talking about. They'll eventually have these auto-created audience segments in the targeting settings menu there in your discovery ads targeting menu that'll say similar to, and then because it'll look at what all the traits again are of each one of these segments, and then it can suggest and say, we have these people that are similar to the segments you set up, you could run those. Respectively, those don't work the best. From what I found, it's not like usually like with Facebook ads, you can do like a 1x difference from my audience, and that seems to work pretty good. From Google, just to give you my professional experience with this, and maybe this will change in the next 5 years because their algorithm will get better, I'm sticking to, once I get 1,000 sales or 1,000 conversions to lead there, I'm hoping that they have an audience that pops up that says similar to, and I'm going to have a conversion goal, of course, set up for purchases. So we know when we got 1,000 purchases, but then the similar to purchasers audience will show up, and we'll bid separately on that as well, because the similar to algorithm basically works well when it's looking at actual customers, not just people who come to your site in general, is my point here. So you'll run that when you eventually can get it. As a side note, getting ahead of myself, if you get 10,000 goals or purchases, depending on if it's leads that you're generating and tracking or just straight up sales, you can, what I would recommend then is I would have a goal set up not just for the purchases, but I would have a audience set up. So if they're from all the main categories of the product or service you sell, I would have a goal set up that if they purchased from this category, that there's a goal just for that. And each category you have, there's an audience for each category of products or service you sell, specifically so that eventually you have a similar audience pop up for each category. Why? Going back to what I set up here, then you can have an ad that's custom just for that category. So the language will be much more specific. Your click-through rates will be higher in result of that. Your conversion rates will be higher in result to that because it's just more tailored to your audience better. And by the way, the higher the click-through rate on your display ad, the lower the cost per click, because Google, even though they say it's pay-per-click advertising, and as do all online PPC advertising, you're basically paying for each impression, because if your click-through rate's low, they'll charge you more. That's how. So essentially, it all just works out to pay per impression or time each time the ad shows. So you're always going for as much click-through rate as you can get, because that'll mean you get more clicks for the same money naturally, and that's right away. That if you are getting somebody that's similar to, if you sell CNC machines and you have a 4-axis CNC machine category, well, I want to have the similar to algorithm that Google has find me people that are similar to the 4-axis machine buyers, because they're going to be significantly different than 3-axis machine buyers in terms of what traits they normally have. And I'm going to want an ad that also says that we sell 4-axis CNC machines, not 3-axis CNC machines, because that's going to get a much higher click-through rate. Therefore, I'm going to have a higher ROI from that campaign's segment all in itself naturally, as it makes sense. That would make sense. And then so you could obviously have your similar to purchasers broken out to individual categories or product or service you have, and you're going to get a better result that way. But that obviously takes a lot of sales, 10,000 sales or leads to be generated before you can really get into similar to purchasers of certain categories like that. But that's normally what I'm limiting my discovery ads targeting to. So in summary, you have a company ad program that you can trust, and your ad from them ends up on a site you can trust, Google in both cases, and you can narrow down your advertising to people who already are interested in what you sell. So like all the stars are aligning here. The last thing here, which is the reason why it works so well and should work so well, and how you should evaluate any other ad purchases you make realistically. Like I gave you my methodology here. If you're trying to evaluate a new source that pops up, or you're in a niche and you have an ad network opportunity in your niche that you want to evaluate. Yeah, I sell candy and there's a site that's just a candy directory. I have to evaluate that site for potential bots and stuff, like I told you, way more frequent than you think. And an ad click fraud software like ClickCease doesn't nearly block out what you would think it does. It does a little bit, not nearly a majority. The last thing, though, to think about when you're doing the display advertising to come up with a strategy as a whole, you got to have an ad, respectively, that doesn't really look like an ad. Why? There's an AIDA ad model that top advertisers use to write ads. Attention, interest, desire, action. The first, which is the kind of the 4 things you need to have, but in order in which people are going to need to do to take interest in what you have to get their attention and click on your ad. Of which the first part of that model is A, for attention. You've got to get their attention. You get their attention by looking different, first of all. Because basically, the reason why people don't click on banner ads anymore at like 0.2%, the ones on the general web, because they mentally block it out and they see ads over here or generally over here, so I don't even look at it. They will look at it if you be different, but with discovery ads, they're so new, so people aren't really fully blocking it out yet, and obviously that might change going into 2022 here and beyond. But your goal, no matter where you're advertising, is to make the ad look unconventional to get people's attention. Because if you don't get their attention, you're not going to get them to click on it, obviously, and that's going to raise your cost per click more and more, the more bland it is, to the point where it gets so high you can't pay for all your costs to make the ad profitable in terms of product cost and everything else. One thing about discovery ads is they have these carousel ad type, so it's a novel channel now, which on YouTube specifically, where the discovery ads show up, it actually blends in with the content. They took a page out of Facebook's book, in that the reason why the Facebook's ads were such a groundbreaking thing at the time is that when they came out with the news feed, you're scrolling and it's not so easy to mentally block out and say that's an ad. If your ad looked good and you actually designed it so that it looks like content instead of an ad, which you should do anyway to make, for the reasons I'm mentioning here, and get a higher return, it was a lot harder to just block it out. And a lot of times they would read it and see what you have before they would even think if it was an ad or not. That's the ultimate here. But with the discovery ads on YouTube, it looks like another video. So you look at it and you're like, you read it, and then only after you read it, you realize it's an ad. So that's really, really great. And they have this carousel ad as well. The carousel ad type. So anyway, I did some testing. The carousel ad works pretty good. I would recommend doing that. So in terms of having the ad look novel, and naturally it is right now, but the giving you the option for the carousel ad makes it even more so. I would test both ad types that Google has available for discovery ads, but I just like the fact I'm telling you up front, just as a side tip, that the carousel ad seems to work pretty well for us in general and as our go-to at this point. Now, discovery ads, every channel naturally, PPC channel you have, there's certain types of products or services that works good for those, and we're not talking about like in terms of niche. Like if you sell candy, a site that has people that like candy on it would be, in terms of the targeting, at the targeting level, be a kind of a first choice, right? Assuming the site's legitimate, like I talked about, to want to advertise on it in the first place. But in terms of these discovery ads, because of how the ad's set up, it's great for anything that's a visual. If you have a visual product, it does very, very well, more so than anything else that we have. So if you have something that is a visual, it could be a service in terms of the results, how visual the results are. These ads work great because you can just show the results on the ad and it gets really good click-through, really good results, or as far as I've tested it so far, and I've done this 10 plus times now. In terms of that, if you have a visual product, you should definitely try these discovery ads out for yourself. But I have 3 examples here in terms of what results I have gotten, in terms of the better results we've gotten, and to show you some examples of where it can work, and so you can evaluate for yourself, yeah, it does really seem like that could work because it worked for them, blah, blah, blah. So case studies, basically. First one is women's clothing. We had a 39-cent cost per click ultimately from the campaign. So because the ad channel is so new, the cost per click is less, but because, respectively, that's a visual item, we got a high click-through rate, the cost per click came down quite a bit. Not super low, but low enough. And they don't have to be super low because Google is figuring out that, that ad inventory doesn't have to be sold at a super discount, but it's low in general for, the average would be like 70 cents if you don't do a very good with your ad and your targeting. Get average click-through rates, 70 cents to $1 somewhere. I don't have the averages for the display, so for discovery ads, them themselves. I'm sure that's published somewhere, but the ROI from that campaign was 3.5 to 1 or 3.5 to 1. So, basically, if we spent 10 on ads, we got $35 in return from that discovery ad. And for that, and that's front-end ROI. There's repeat purchases, so that is profitable and was doable for the client. So I'm just saying that was one opportunity where we hit our mark, basically. The second example here I got for you is custom mailboxes. So it's just like it sounds. They sell a customized mailbox that is another visual product. In that particular case, on the ad, and I should have mentioned, on the women's clothing, it's very simple. If you're in that business, you just show the new styles, the latest styles to get people's attention on the ad, get a high click-through rate, and obviously that gets a qualified click at the same time. Your golden thing is to, get just as qualified traffic as you would otherwise, but with a gimmick to get the click-through rate up higher than what you would average have. Therefore, you can now get a lower cost per click and probably beat your competition at that point. But for the custom mailbox, all we did there was we had just a picture of the mailbox, a interesting looking design there, and respectively, 51 cents cost per click in that situation, 7.4 or 740% ROI, 7.4 to 1 ROI in that particular situation using discovery ads, and we would rotate out, the different mailbox designs. So if you have carousel ads, you just use the same image, just different images, but with the same thing. You don't have to get too fancy there. You're not going to be like, here's feature 1, here's feature 2. That just use, generally speaking, what the end result is going to look like to the consumer is the go-to for me, and basically what I would suggest to you right off the bat. For whatever you're doing, And if you have a visual product or service, like I said, service being the results, then you got a turnkey way to make money here. The last example is the specialty paint. So it's a paint you'll use at home. I don't want to give away the exact product because give away the client's campaign that's working very well. That and generate 7 figures in sales a year, mid 7 figures a year. We had from that 12 cents a click. So the click-through rate was super high, but in this situation it was, forgot to put here, remarketing. So you can use, if the driving cold traffic in isn't going to work for you, technically you can go remarketing with this, and I would do remarketing anyway because it's another touch point with remarketing. And you're not going to just, with remarketing, because it always works so well, you're going to do it in every channel that you can. So if they're on this site, you get in front of them here. If not, they go to this site, you got them here. And even though the front end ROI of people who click on the ad and buy right away is not usually the greatest on these, in this particular situation, and by the way with that, it's because the remarketing more than anything influences the buyer, so when they do go to buy, you're the first person they remember and think about. More so than people seeing on the ad and then instantly clicking and buying, because as they're doing other things, they're not prepared right at the moment to buy, even with the discount code, which will raise the amount of people who do buy right away. But still, you're looking at overall sales, you'll see the bigger picture, bigger impact of what the remarketing does for you, from how many people it influences to buy, which you already paid good money to get to your site, and which you're maximizing the number of people that you paid to get to your site in the first place to actually finish their purchase in the next weeks or months, going through and having ads for different reasons that you should buy in terms of quality and our reviews and testimonials and blah, 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 rotated out in the remarketing. In this situation, we just had, and I told you before, you just want to show the results in these ads. That's like a go-to, almost work every time. Also because that's what we did here. Just showed the paint after it was applied, what it looked great. And, there's different colors. So, in the carousel ad, blue, green, whatever, and worked really, really good. And because it's remarketing, naturally it's going to have a higher conversion rate. But with remarketing, it got a 12.1 to 1 return. So basically a 1,200% return, which is good for remarketing, at least for what, like I said, what you can measure on the initial click through the ad, and not what, benefit you get from them seeing the ad, not clicking on it, being influenced, and then buying later, which would take this 12.1 to 1 ROI even higher if you factored that in. But the click-through rate reflects, the low cost per the cost per click reflects how high the click-through rate was, because it was really, if you're going to buy paint, that's the best way to reel somebody in. Oh, it looks beautiful, right? In terms of catching their eye, if you remember the AIDA thing, you got to get their attention, and you trick them into thinking that it's not an ad, so you can get them to look at it, and then the eye candy aspect of a paint, and the fact that you can see what it's going to probably look like on your wall or what have you, was great. And so that got, a high response rate because of those elements or factors. You could anyway see what can happen there. I do not have technically any services here. Like I said, in general, this will work great. As I know, it's my go-to for if you're selling any kind of product. In general, especially if it's a visual product, but even if it's not a visual product, I'm still going to do the discovery ads. But if you have a service and you can productize that service, and let's say you offer SEO services and you have a different package, I'm still going to be able to probably make discovery ads work. And in that case, I'm going to package them up, which you should productize your services anyway. And then I'm going to have an image when we go back to results showing the 300% increase in rankings we got. SEO is a service to increase your rankings if you're not familiar with that on Google, showing how far you got the rankings to go up for a particular client on Google, and have that as a part of the image, because like I said, people want to see the end result. So that one saying, as that one saying goes, People don't buy drills, they buy the hole in the wall. So show the hole in the wall, and that generally will be the best thing you can go to and do. Of course, try out different things. Don't ever take what I'm going to give you here as the only thing you can do. This just gets you I'm just distilling down kind of in general what works for most people. Certain things will work way better for others, but if you just want a good starting point that probably makes money and will make money, maybe not make all of the money you can make because you want to refine certain elements to it for your exact business, this is the perfect place to start, we'll say. If you like this video, I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. If you want to make a lot of money with PPC, you should check those out. I have a blog, though, at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns that are guaranteed to work for our clients, in which I build them, how I build them. If you want to see information along those lines, you can find it there. Apart from that, if you have any questions or comments about discovery ads you think I should have covered and didn't, anything that doesn't make sense, leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel within a day or two. Apart from that, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.